The question I come back to is ultimately pretty boring, and I actually thought you had the right take on Humane a couple months ago, which is I'm glad this product exists, but I'm not sure it's actually going to succeed. I
Well, I'm pretty
want
sure it's
people
not
to
going to succeed.
yeah,
To
I
be
think we
clear.
can say pretty definitively. But the one thing that I would ask if I were working at HQ with Johnny Ive and Sam Altman is what the unique use case is going to be for any of these products, unique relative to an iPhone, because it seemed like the Humane people never really addressed that question in relation to an iPhone. And even conceptually, I've yet to hear anything that sounds like it could revolutionize our relationship with technology. So before you start worrying about designs for hardware that's going to cater to I feel like we need to answer that baseline question of what AI is going to do that's better than an iPhone. Does
Well,
that
I
make
mean,
sense to you?
I, no, I disagree a little bit. I can very strongly see the case for hardware, because I think right now AI is in a bit of an uncanny valley in a lot of cases. Like it's often most useful when you're using it sort of deliberately, right? You're using it as a tool, you're trying to do things. And then the way you can do that most effectively is by figuring out the right prompt and how to do stuff. And there's
Right.
been some cool examples just even in the last week. Like some guy issued some sort of challenge. He's like, I'm going to prove how GPT doesn't work. And he like issued this challenge about solving this puzzle. And people had GPT solve it within 24 hours. And he like had put up $10,000. To his credit, he tweeted, he's like, I was totally wrong. I guess they're smarter than I thought. And there was actually a good post by I think it's Ethan Mollick. He's a professor that is tweets a lot about AI, a lot of really interesting stuff. He gets access to stuff early because of that. But just pointing out that there's a lot about these models that we're not even sure yet what they can do. Like, and
Yeah.
it's also not clear. And I talked about this in my interview with Benedict Evans last week. Like, what's the right interface? Is it that we need people to build products around these so they can actually extract this value? Or is this sort of you can just talk to it, it gives you what you want? Is the answer to sort of prompt engineering just having better models that are smarter and sort of make sense? I think that OpenAI's sense is that it's the latter, right? Like just wait till you see GPT-5 or GPT-6 or sort of like whatever it might be. But the problem then is the closer you get to having this conversational interface, the more devastating the little sort of nicks and cuts along the ways are, right? Like, and so I've talked about in the context of ChatGPT on an iPhone. You can talk to it, and it's really compelling. But what do you have to do? To unlock your iPhone, to open the app, you have to start it recording your voice. You say something, you press the button so it stops recording your voice. It transcribes it very quickly, sends it up. You have to wait for it to get a response. The response comes back, and
Right.
then it speaks it back to you.
And
Not
all
very
of that
fun.
takes much longer than it would to just punch something into your iPhone and get an answer right
It
now.
actually, I'm not sure it takes that much longer, especially for sort of long questions, but it feels like it takes longer. And that's what actually matters. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a fun experience. What you want is the sort of her style. You're just having a conversation back and forth. The way you get better prompts is you ask questions, you clarify, you sort of like bounce back and forth. And that is going to be very hard to accomplish without owning the hardware. And I think probably just because at a minimum, at least when it comes to an iPhone, you're not going to get the base level access for, like, say you had AirPods in, you can just ask a question.
Right.
That's going to go to Siri, right? You have to open the app, you have to do sort of XYZ. That's why the most interesting part of the case in many respects is the smartwatch integration of the DOJ case, because that's getting at the core of, number one, what Apple does is deeply integrate its own products. And some of that is for good reasons. Some of that is for competitive reasons. And it also speaks to the potential value of restricting that, because it'd be great if that capability was more widely available to other companies to sort of build on top of it, given the importance of phones. And you need that sort of going forward. So I can completely understand hardware, even though it's going to be
Yeah.
exceptionally difficult to succeed in. You still might need to go that path to actually get to where you want to go.
Yeah, I definitely understand why you would want to have your own hardware relative to Apple. I just am most curious to see what the transformative use case ends up being. And I can't really get there in my head right now, but that's what's fun. I guess we're going to find out together what that turns into. The one thing I will say, I mentioned to you earlier this week, at some point in my life, I'm going to fly out to Wisconsin and force you to watch Halt and Catch Fire. I have done a really bad job as a host of this podcast and still have not seen Her, which is everyone's go-to reference point for what AI could be. So I need to do that. That's my Sharp Tech homework sometime in the next week or two.
This is a long-standing sort of Ben podcast tradition. In the Exponent run, this was also a running joke. I would always reference Her, and James had never seen it. It became a point where it was important that he not see it just to continue the bit. But I guess so. Here we are.
No, that's a proud legacy to continue. Absolutely, I'm never going to see Her after that. All right, well,
you actually should. It's a great movie.
Yeah, but I'm a big Joaquin Phoenix guy, so maybe I'll check it. Anna Scarlett Johansson, great voice. In any event,